The 2023 quarterback class was full of big-time names. You had Bryce Young, who went to the Panthers, C.J. Stroud, who went to the Texans, Will Levis, who went to the Titans, and Anthony Richardson, who went to the Colts. Those guys were the big four when it came to rookie quarterbacks, but everyone else outside of that was still trying to make a name for themselves and will be trying to prove that they belong in the NFL too. There's no player who's trying harder than Dorian Thompson Robinson. After starring at a very prestigious high school, Thompson Robinson became one of the best quarterbacks in UCLA history, put up insane stats, and had amazing highlight-level plays. Some doubted he could be an NFL quarterback, but after just a couple of preseason games, Thompson Robinson looks like he may have a chance at one day being an NFL starter, and at minimum, is a quarterback steal for the Cleveland Browns. In today's video, I want to introduce you to the rise of Dorian Thompson Robinson. We're going to talk about his insane journey, how he rewrote the UCLA stat book, and why he's a quarterback steal for the Browns. But before we get started, quickly be sure to leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new and love college football content, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I could cover next. Now, let's get started and talk about the rise of Dorian Thompson Robinson. So going back in time, football ran in his family's tree, as he was related to Corey Chavis, who was a former Vanderbilt cornerback, and was also related to Harry Dunn, who played offensive tackle at James Madison. Both went on to play in both the NFL and CFL, and while DTR was always an insane athlete, he was first born in Columbia, South Carolina, before the family would eventually move to Las Vegas. He quickly became one of the best athletes in the area, and he was always a huge deal. By the time he was getting ready for high school, he had become a star for the Las Vegas Junior Skyhawks team, and during the season, he finished with a combined 900 plus total yards of offense and 25 touchdowns. He even had 35 tackles as a defender. He said very early on that his three dream schools would be Oregon, South Carolina, and Ohio State, and he was going to get a chance to maybe one day reach a program like that. He arrived at the prestigious Bishop Gorman High School and would follow a lineage of great quarterbacks, which included Anu Solomon, Randall Cunningham, and phenom Tate Martell. Head coach Tony Sanchez promoted DTR to the varsity roster as a sophomore, and by then he started attracting attention and offers. High major Division I coaches wanted to come watch him play, and their head coach said that DTR being a backup actually helped cultivate his valuable leadership skills. Combining that with his great physical measurables, this made him a big-time recruit without really playing much. He was still frustrated about not playing though. His mom said, quote, "There's always been an underlying level of frustration. We just knew when it came time to his senior year, he was going to be ready to go. He obviously always had the talent, but he was stuck behind Martell. As a junior, he threw for 3 touchdowns and ran for 171 yards and 6 scores. He's also a wide receiver, as he caught 22 passes for 397 yards and 8 scores. Obviously, he was the backup to Martell, and he said, quote, "For me, it's always about my boys and doing anything to help them win." Right after Tate headed off to Ohio State, Dorian was the guy, and everyone in the room respected him and was ready for him to take off. His coach said, quote, "Everyone knew he was the guy. What he had to go through to get here shows a lot of character and a lot of maturity." Crazily, he had some big-time weapons to pass the ball to. First, he had tight end Brevin Jordan, who went on to play at Miami and now on the Houston Texans. He had wide receiver Jalen Naylor, who was a star at Michigan State and is now at the Minnesota Vikings. And then Cedric Tillman, who was a star receiver at Tennessee and is now a rookie with the Browns. That is quite the combo. In terms of his on-the-field effort, he lived up to all the hype. He threw for 3,015 yards with 36 touchdowns and only 3 picks. He just said, quote, "I knew my time was going to come." He could have easily gone to another school where playing time was more guaranteed, but he didn't, and now he'd get a chance to choose a school where he could play earlier in college, which was more important. Where would he end up going? Well, he had over 24 reported scholarship offers and could have chosen nearly any program in the country. Eventually, schools such as Alabama, LSU, Miami, Florida State, Georgia, Louisville, and UCLA all offered. He ended up choosing the UCLA Bruins over Michigan. He visited the Wolverines for their spring game and said he absolutely loved the reception he got around campus and that the Wolverines have great fans, but his heart belonged with the Bruins since his sophomore year. At the time, Jim Moore was the head coach, and the Bruins were coming off the Brett Hundley and Josh Rosen eras, which were a pretty high bar to live up to. He also would have to earn it. He said, quote, "I fell in love with it the first time I visited there. I was really fighting to get that offer, but I had to push all last summer and I finally got it. After I did their camp, they extended an offer to me, and that's where I knew I wanted to be." It also seemed that their quarterback coach Jed Fish was a huge factor. He went from Michigan to UCLA, and as you know is now the head man at Arizona. He got DTR to go there. It wasn't just a football move either, as he said he wanted to go to a place with a good college experience. And he said you can get that in California, you can get that in LA, and then a UCLA degree would set him up for life. He also apparently wanted to be a dentist, so academics and a good degree was going to be very important to him as well, and I guess that was also a factor into it. All was set for him to arrive at UCLA with a ton of hype, but then a roadblock would happen. UCLA got a new head football coach, and they brought in Chip Kelly. He ended up loving it, and after sitting down with Coach Kelly, he said he was 100% committed to the Bruins. He said, quote, "Coach Kelly's message for me was the best players will play, and I think that's big especially for me and my situation." According to 24/7 Sports, DTR was the 4-star recruit, the number 2 dual-threat quarterback, and the 36th best player in the class of 2018. So, how would he end up doing at UCLA? When DTR would arrive at UCLA, he'd have a lot of hype. He knew he'd have a chance to compete for the starting job, and he was confident he could play right away. At first, he was supposed to be the backup quarterback, but after Wilton Speight got injured, DTR was forced to play early on. His first game would come against Cincinnati, and while they would lose the game, he showed flash. He ended up putting up 254 yards and a touchdown against Oklahoma, but sadly, his first 5 games would be losses. He would end up leading them to wins over Cal and Arizona, but all in all, it was not a great first year. He passed for 1,300 yards with 7 touchdowns and 4 picks. In 2019, he was expected to get better. At first, it didn't start out great. The Bruins lost 4 of their first 5 games, including at home to Cincinnati and San Diego State. The Wazoo game, though, was when he finally broke out. Against the Cougars, he ended up having 7 total touchdowns, including 5 passing touchdowns and over 500 yards through the air. A couple weeks later, he had 3 more touchdowns in a win over Stanford, helped them knock off number 24 Arizona State, and also had 4 touchdowns in a loss to USC. He was getting better and better. He threw for 2,700 yards with 21 touchdowns and 12 picks. In 2020, he had a lot of hype because he was one of the best returning quarterbacks in the Pac-12, but as we know, the Pac-12 played very limited games, so in his 5 games, he passed for 1,100 yards with 12 touchdowns and 4 picks. He had multiple 4-touchdown performances, including games against Cal, Colorado, and USC. DTR was pretty decent, but 2021 was when he would finally break out. He helped the Bruins get to a bowl game for the first time in a couple of years, and along the way, became one of the best highlight makers at the quarterback spot too. He passed for 2,409 yards with 21 touchdowns and 6 picks. He also had over 600 yards on the ground with 9 scores through the air. Chip Kelly really needed a breakout season, and DTR helped him get there. He ended up playing in 11 total games, leading them to 8 wins. He consistently scored touchdowns on the ground and put up big numbers through the air as well. He probably could have left for the 2022 NFL Draft, but instead decided to come back for 1 more year. At first, it was somewhat of a struggle, as they beat Bowling Green, Alcorn State, and almost lost at home to South Alabama, but then he had 2 unbelievably exciting games. He had 4 combined touchdowns and a win over number 15 Washington, and then had 5 touchdowns and a win over number 11 Utah. He ended up struggling against Oregon, which would be their first loss of the year. Before a couple weeks later, he had 4 more scores and a win over Arizona State. Unfortunately, UCLA would fall off a bit towards the end of the season, as they lost both Arizona and USC, but he had 5 touchdowns against Southern Cal, and also helped them beat Cal. They ended up qualifying for the Sun Bowl, where they would lose to Pitt 37-35. He finished with 3 touchdowns, but he also had 3 costly interceptions. He finished with 3,154 yards, with 27 touchdowns and 10 picks. He also had over 600 yards and 12 scores on the ground, making him one of the better quarterbacks in the country. Between 2021 and 2022, when DTR was at his best, he combined for nearly 6,000 yards and 48 touchdowns. He also ran for over 1,200 yards and 21 touchdowns, and he completed his career as UCLA's all-time leader in total offense, total all-time leader in completions, and all-time leader in total touchdowns. He was obviously an A-plus athlete, but some were worried that he would not be an NFL quarterback. He did have arm strength, but some were worried about his accuracy and his performance under pressure. He's also prone to making a lot of mistakes, and while the consensus was that he was a great athlete with a lot of potential, as I said, many were skeptical he could do anything in the league. It still didn't matter though, as he ended up getting taken in the 2023 NFL Draft. He was selected with the 140th overall pick in the 5th round by the Cleveland Browns. The team already obviously has Deshaun Watson, and they also got Kellen Mond from Minnesota and Josh Dobbs, who's been around to a couple of teams. You had 2 project players and a veteran backing up Watson, and it was going to be anyone's guess as to who would fill that backup spot. After 2 preseason football games, it looks like DTR is proof that talent can be found at the end of the draft. He's been repeatedly generating a ton of buzz, has looked very poised, has seemingly learned from a lot of his college mistakes, and is just also putting up great numbers. In terms of advanced stats, PFF recently analyzed him, and they gave him a 90.2 grade based on his 231 total passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Furthermore, PFF also said, quote, "The Browns found a stud in the 5th round." It looks like he's going to be starting their next preseason game as well. And while DTR probably won't be the starter come week 1, as I'd say there's almost a 0% chance of that happening, but with Deshaun Watson, and especially the Browns organization, you never know what the heck is going to happen, and it could just be one legal dispute or one injury, and DTR is the starter for them. Out of all the late round guys, DTR and Aiden O'Connell are my 2 favorites, and at minimum, DTR should be able to get on the field just based on athleticism and will maybe play in certain packages. He's a great athlete, a great person, and really did his career the right way. But what do you guys think? If you're a Browns or UCLA fan, what do you think of Dorian Thompson Robinson? What quarterback or rookie should I cover next? And also, be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and check out all of the videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.